Treasurer, welcome. You've made some huge changes today, but Treasurer, I want to ask this. What fundamentally changes in September? People will still be out of work. They're just going to receive less money in the same situation under your changes.
Well, we saw the jobs numbers last week, Patricia, which showed over 200,000 people getting back into work. That was double the number that the market was expecting. And really, we've got one country at two different stages right now. Outside of Victoria, the economies are opening up. People are getting back into work. Jobs are becoming gradually more available. And we are ensuring that our systems and our payments are reflecting that reality. Of course, in Victoria, more than 5 million people are in lockdown, and that's going to be for a matter of weeks still to come. So what we're trying to do is adopt a national approach as opposed to state-specific or sector-specific approaches, but by reapplying the turnover test and by ensuring that even at $1,200, which is a reduction from the $1,500 payment currently, that there still will be significant support that's going into the community and to the workers who need it most.
All right, let's drill down into some of the changes. JobKeeper recipients will be able to apply for JobSeeker as well if they're on the part-time rate. Why is that?
Well, of course, we'd like them to be working even more than what they may be receiving from their single employer. And I think this is a key point, is that many people have more than one job if they're working part-time or if they're working as a long-term casual. But in terms of both JobKeeper and JobSeeker, we want people who are below that income test to be receiving the support that they need. So by putting in place a lower tiered payment, we're reflecting the fact that some people were getting more with the $1,500 payment than they were pre-COVID. So this is, I think, a welcomed move that we're doing with the two tiered payments. But if people do not have another job and they fall below the income threshold, then they'll be able to receive also the JobSeeker payment to get them through this difficult time.
How did you arrive at the figures? Why did you decide to make the cuts that you did?
Well, firstly, it's not a cut, it's an extension.
Well, no, it's a lower rate. It is a lower rate. That's what I mean. I can use the proper language. It is a lower rate.
Well, Patricia, I'll take you to task on this. This is an $86 billion initiative from the federal government. It's the largest single economic measure that any Australian government has ever undertaken. Right now, there are 3.5 million workers at some 960,000 businesses that are benefiting from the JobKeeper payments. That's around 30% of the pre-COVID private sector workforce. Now, we asked Treasury to conduct a review at the midway point of this legislated 6-month program. They came back and said it's well targeted and it's effective. And what we have done, in light of some of the challenges in the labour market, even though restrictions are being eased, is to continue this program. And so we kept faith with the Australian people. Until the end of September, there are no changes to this program. After September, rather than ending it, we're actually extending it for up to 6 months.
Oh, there's no doubt about that, Treasurer. That's a fact. But it is a lower rate. You can take me to task, but that's a fact.
It's a lower rate than the initial $1,500 payment, but it's an extension of what was originally legislated under this program. Now, those payments that we've chosen at $1,200 and at $1,000 are basically coming down gradually, and at $1,200, it's still around 80% of the minimum wage.
Okay. So the question, though, on how you arrived at those figures and why did you make that decision?
Well, because
I'm having some trouble, of course, with the interview there. I think we've just frozen on the Treasurer. We'll try and fix that line. The Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, joining me, talking about today's huge announcement in relation to JobSeeker and JobKeeper. JobKeeper being, of course, the payment that's been provided to keep people in their jobs, to give employers the money to keep their workers on. That's been reduced, but JobSeeker, that's the unemployment benefit, that's also been reduced, but it's only been extended till December. December. With JobKeeper, it extends till March. There is a discrepancy there that I hope to be able to quiz the Treasurer on if we're able to get that line back up. Look, today there has been criticism from groups like the Australian Council of Trade Unions and also ACOS, the welfare sector, about particularly job seeker, the unemployment benefit, why the government hasn't opted for a permanent increase. The calls for a permanent increase on that payment are not new, but certainly they've accelerated, I think, quite dramatically throughout this crisis. But they've certainly been there for a long time. It's actually been a very long campaign where the business sector, the welfare sector have all got together and argued very forcefully that the unemployment benefit should permanently rise, that it's unaffordable, that it's basically not livable at the moment. So, you know, this is a unity ticket from business and the welfare sector. This isn't just one group. Government's been lobbied on this. They haven't made that decision today. They have ultimately not decided to go for a permanent increase, although when the Prime Minister at the press conference was quizzed on what would happen at December, of course, December being a period where people obviously find it very difficult to find a job, but equally where people are facing Christmas and a time where generally not many jobs are available, that ultimately cutting off that higher payment at that point would be so problematic for the 2 million workers that will be on the unemployment benefit. He made it clear that ultimately the government would lean in, that was his language, to perhaps a higher supplement even after December, but again, no clarity on whether that would be permanent. There's another element to the announcement today as we try to fix up this line with the Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, who I have so many questions for. Another element to the overhaul that's been introduced today is in relation to mutual obligation. Now, mutual obligation exists where unemployed people are required to apply for jobs and participate in actively looking for work. Those mutual obligation requirements have been suspended during the coronavirus crisis, and everyone would understand why that happened. Of course, during this crisis, people have been locked down, literally, been asked not to participate or have been unable to participate. Things have changed, the government says, and they want people applying for what they say are 4 jobs a week. That's the change that was introduced today. It starts in August, and that's been contentious as well. The ACTU, also the bodies representing unemployed people, arguing that that's too soon, that ultimately people won't be able to get jobs because unemployment is so high, and they won't be able to ultimately get jobs because they're applying for jobs that just aren't in the system. The government's answer to that is that, you know, if they're not obviously available, people will continue to be on the payment. But if you are offered a job and you say no to that job, you actually say, you know, you don't want to be taking that job, that you can be then kicked off the payment. So that's like the stick element to the overhaul. That does change quite a bit of the structure, and that has been contentious today. Particularly contentious because in Melbourne and the Mitchell Shire, where the current lockdown is in order, the stage 3 restrictions, businesses have been forced effectively to close their doors. So in that environment, you can understand people applying for jobs that are just not there because the law requires that business close down is a really difficult proposition. We'll be back with the Treasurer very soon. I think actually he's back right now, which is just what I wanted. Treasurer, technical issues, welcome back. I've told them all about your overhaul, but I want to ask you the questions. On JobSeeker, why isn't the increase permanent and adequate? Long-term unemployment is with us for a long period into the future. Why haven't you opted to make it a permanent increase?
Well, as you know, we put in place a $550 coronavirus supplement, effectively doubling the previous New Start payment, and that has helped cushion the blow for many Australians who have lost their job and are on income support. That will continue, that $550 supplement, out to the end of September. But as the economy is opening up, we made those changes to JobKeeper by reducing it by $300, and we're doing the same with JobSeeker by reducing that payment by $300. Now, the Prime Minister himself said that he was leaning in to a continuation of the coronavirus supplement, but he would take those decisions, and the government would take those decisions closer to the end of the year when we have a better sense of the dynamics in the labour market at that particular time.
Okay.
What we need to do is get the balance right here. We need to give people the incentive to find work, and at the same time we need to support them when they're out of work.
Okay, you say that, but you've made the decision till March for JobKeeper. You also don't know what will be happening in January or February by that logic. Why is it different for the unemployment benefit, Treasurer?
Because they're two very different programs.
Sure, but if they're about the labour market and you're saying you don't know about the labour market, you can't just say you will for one scheme but not the other.
Actually, they're very different programs. The JobKeeper program is a temporary one, now going out to the end of March, and this gives businesses the certainty to work their plans forward and to make the adjustments that they need. When it comes to JobSeeker, as you know, with regards to the old New Start payment, now known as JobSeeker, that's a permanent feature of our social welfare system, that there is an unemployment benefit, namely New Start Now JobSeeker. As for the coronavirus supplement, we'll make that decision at the end of the year.
Okay, but let's deal with the anxieties that I know many Australians will have watching this. Will they ever return to $40 a day?
Again, the Prime Minister was asked that today, and what he said was that we've put in place these particular supports. They will continue to the end of the year, then we'll make decisions at that point. But if somebody right now is on the JobSeeker payment, the best thing we can do for them is to help open up the economy so that they can get back into work, because that is what the program is designed. That's why we have reintroduced gradually the mutual obligation requirements, and that is also why we've announced a very significant skills and retraining package.
Treasurer,
last week
Treasurer, but will you rule out
initiatives?
Will you rule out returning back to that $40 a day?
I'm not ruling in or ruling out.
Well, isn't that just a standard thing you need to do? How can you have millions of Australians on unemployment benefits and put them back on that abysmal payment?
Patricia, we're right now we've just announced an extension of the JobSeeker payment for a further 3 months after it ends its legislated increase at the end of September. As we've said today very clearly, we will reevaluate the future of that payment closer to the end of the year. And my message to your listeners, whether they're on JobSeeker, whether they're on some other program, or indeed whether they're in work, is that we are doing everything possible to strengthen the Australian economy. It's a full court press. Yep. Everything from business investment incentives to the support programs, to the skills packages. It's all designed to create the most dynamic and flexible labour market and employment prospects for people.
Treasurer, thank you so much, and apologies also to our viewers for the technical issues. Lovely to speak to you.
Always good to be with you.
That's the